zealous jade obelisk destroy temples and shrines of those who do not believe in their true and malevolent god, the speaker in the stone. And in this video we're going to show you how to paint the Nephrite priestess and Idolarch up to battle ready. Now before we begin we need to undercoat our models, and for this we've used grey cere. First off we'll be painting the Nephrite priestess, and for this we'll be using Baraknar burgundy for the cloth, Mournfang brown for the brown details, Skullcrusher brass for the gold details, Iron Hands steel for the silver details, and Gauss blaster green for the jade. So we're going to dip into our pot of Baraknar burgundy here. I'm going to pop it onto our palette. I'm going to thin it down with just a touch of water. And now we can start applying it to the cloth areas. So we're just going to make sure that we avoid any other areas if we can, but don't worry, we're going to paint over some of those areas. So just make sure you get a good coverage on the cloth. You may need a couple of layers of this just to build it up. Next we're going to take our Mournfang brown, and for this we're going to paint any of the straps or the ropes and the dirt on the moulded floor, but we want to avoid the skulls as well though, because we're going to paint them a different colour. Next we're going to use Skullcrusher brass, and for this we're going to use it on any bracelets, necklaces, belts and the handles on the blades. You can also use it on the detail on the base as well. Next we're going to take our Iron Hands steel and we're going to pop this on the shoulder pad on the right. You can use this on the rest of the warband for any metallics such as their hammers. And for our last base coat we're going to use our Gauss blaster green, and for this we're going to apply it to any areas that we want it to be jade stone. So we're going to do it on the mask here, on the plate in the middle of her necklace and the blades as well. You may need a couple of coats of this just because it's a thinner paint. With those base coats now dry, we can move on to our shades and contrast. And for our first set we'll be using Nuln Oil, Celia Green shade, Apothecary White and Dark Oath Flesh. So we're going to dip into our pot of Nuln here. It's going to get a little bit on our brush, not too much. Then we start applying it to the areas. So for this we'll be using it in the recesses of the purple cloth, but we're also going to use it to shade over the gold, the silver and the leather straps as well. If you do feel like you've got too much on your brush, you can always soak it off with a clean brush. Next we're going to move on to the Celia Green shade, and for this we're just going to cover the jade areas. We're going to make sure that it goes into nice recesses, but we don't want too much, especially on the big medallion and on the mask. Next we're going to move on to Apothecary White, and for this we're going to use it onto the shawl on her left shoulder. So I'm just going to get it all over it. I'm going to move it around so it doesn't pull too heavily because I want that colour to still come through. And now we're going to use our Dark Oath Flesh for the skin. So I'm just going to pop it all over. We're going to avoid the heart that she's holding in her hand. With that first set of contrast and shades now dry, we can move on to the last three, and for this we'll be using Skeleton Horde, Black Legion and Blood Angels Red. So we're going to dip into the pot of Skeleton Horde. I'm not going to take too much, and then we can start applying it to the base area and the skulls. So I'm just going to pop it on the skulls here and the bone up above as well. You can apply it to any other areas that you want it to be a nice light brown colour. Next we're going to use Black Legion, and for this we're going to pop it onto the hair and also on the stone on the base as well. So just be careful to avoid any painted areas like the mask and the metalwork. And finally we can use Blood Angels Red on the heart and the drip on the sword as well. You can also get it on the back of the hands if you want to make it a little bit more gory. With those contrasts now dry, the Nephrite priestess is now complete. Next, we're going to move on to the idol arc, and for this we'll be just using one base coat of Barrett Burgundy for the scales and the claws. So we're going to dip into the pot. I'm going to pop it right just next to the first batch. It's now dry, so we're going to pop a little bit of water on there. And then we're going to pop it onto the spines and the claws. So as you can see, they're all over the wingtips, so we're just going to paint those in gently, avoiding the other areas that are already grey sear, so we want to use them for later. With the base paint now dry, we can move on to the contrast and technical paints. For these we'll be using Briar Queen Chill, Tyran Blue, Rattling Grime and Tesseract Glow. So we're going to dip into our Briar Queen Chill here. I'm not going to pop it on the palette because we're going to pop it straight onto the model. Just a small application. So for this we're going to pop it all over the skin, avoiding the Barrett Burgundy we've already painted. But don't worry, if you do get a bit on there, you can always wait till this dries and then apply more Barrett Burgundy over the top. Next we're going to use Tyran Blue. I'm going to pop this all over the wing scales. I'm going to pop it on the underside of the tail and the belly. Next we're going to move on to Rattling Grime, and for this we're going to use it on the beak. So we're going to neatly put it around and up along the face, and you might need a couple of layers of this just to build the colour up. Finally we're going to move on to Tesseract Glow. We're going to use this for the eyes. So we're going to use it on the big eye here, and we're going to pop it around the outside of it as well so it looks like it's glowing. And then the little two eyes there as well, and we're going to repeat it on the other side. With the Tesseract Glow now finished, you can also see that I've used the gold, jade and brown details from the previous model to finish them off. And now we're going to move on to the basing. And for this we'll be using Armageddon Dust and then Seraphim Sepia. So for this we're going to dip into the pot, and we're going to use our trusty texture tool for this. So we're going to grab the pot and then we're going to pop in the scoop. So using the wide end to get as much as we can. And then we're going to pop it onto the base. Now for this I'm just going to pop it on. You can also pop it on top of the brown details that we've already painted, just to blend them in. The texture paint may take roughly an hour to dry, so be patient and leave it to dry naturally. Now that the texture is dry, we can use our Seraphim Sepia all over the base. With the texture and the shade now dry, and the rim of the base painted, our Nephrite Priestess and Idol Arc are now complete. And there you have it, our Jade Obelisk, Nephrite Priestess and Idol Arc are now battle ready to cause destruction and fear to those who disobey the speaker in the stone. By following these methods and techniques, you can apply these to any warbands in your collection. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and we hope you enjoyed painting your own Warcry Send of Fate box set, and we'll see you again soon. Bye bye!